man has cystic fibrosis, which is a disease in his lungs.
Lungs? What are lungs?
Our lungs are what fuel us with oxygen. They breathe in air, then extract the oxygen and passes it through into the bloodstream, where it's rushed off to the tissues and organs that require it to function.
Oh!
Do you know what system the lungs belong to?
No, what system does the lungs belong to?
The lungs are part of the respiratory system. Respiration refers to the cells of the body using the oxygen to create energy, and how they exhale carbon dioxide. That is a waste of this process. The lungs have to work continuously because the body cells are constantly using up oxygen and producing carbon dioxide. Unlike the heart, the lungs have no muscle tissue. Instead, muscles in the rib cage and the diaphragm do all the work of the lifting the ribs upward and outward to let the air in, and then relaxing to force the air out.
Would that man need an organ transplant?
I'm sorry, sweetie, but I don't know the answer to that.
What kind of disease would make a person need a transplant for their lungs? And how can they be treated?
I'm sorry, sweetie, I don't know the answer to that.
Transplantation may help people with end-stage cystic fibrosis regain health. Currently, double lung, heart, lung, and liver transplants are the only definitive treatments for patients with advanced disease. If your physician suspects you have cystic fibrosis, he or she will probably recommend a sweat test. Simple and painless, it measures the amount of salt in its sweat. A high salt level, along with other symptoms, point to a diagnosis of cystic fibrosis. Genetic tests are also being used to diagnose cystic fibrosis, especially in adults or when results of sweat tests are inconclusive. DNA from a cheek swab or blood sample is analyzed to look for mutations in the gene responsible for cystic fibrosis, which would be found in chromosome 7. Genetic tests are also used to diagnose cystic fibrosis prenatally.
I'm going to be sharing some interesting facts about lung. That a person can breathe 23,000 breaths a day, where there are 2 lungs positioned on each side of your heart, and you can only live with one of them. At rest, a person breathes about 14 to 16 times per minute. After exercise, it could be increased to over 60 times per minute. If all the air tubes and sacs in the lungs were connected in a line, they could exceed 50 kilometers. And you can only live with one of your lungs. And your left lung is divided into 2 tubes, which is your 3 lungs is divided into 3 tubes. And now I'm going to be sharing some general facts about lungs. According to the Scientific Registry of Transplant, a total of 1,076 lung transplants and 31 heart lung transplants were performed in the United States in 2002. Of these transplants, 1,041 lungs were obtained from deceased donors and 35 were living donors. The survival rate of 1 year after transplant was 77% for lung transplant and 64% for heart lung transplant.
An organ transplant is a process where a failing organ is replaced with a healthy organ. This is done when that certain organ stops working because of a disease or injury, or it stops working completely. Most common organs that are transplanted are the kidneys, the liver, the heart, pancreas, lungs, and small intestine. It is possible for more than one organ to be transplanted at a time. Organ transplants have been performed in the United States since the 1950s, and one organ donor can save up to 8 lives. There are 2 types of lung transplants. There's a single or double lung transplants. Living donors can donate a single lobe from the lungs, though it will not regenerate another person's lungs. The total number of people on the lung waiting list at this time is 2,743 in Canada. The mortality rate while waiting for the lung is 12%.